This week on the This Baker Life podcast, we are talking to Harry Muir, who is the co-founder of the Purpose of Sport initiative. Harry is a former Toronto Blue Jay, former professional baseball player, and he'll join us to talk about what POSI means to youth sports and how you can use it in your children's youth sports all year long. All right, welcome to the TBL podcast, and I'm super excited to welcome Harry Muir here today. Harry, welcome. How are you?
Thanks, Chris. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for doing this, because this is an important topic for youth sports in particular, but really all sports. And you've been really heavily involved in sport, in particular baseball. You're a professional baseball player, or were a professional baseball player with the Toronto Blue Jays system and in many other areas. But for obviously that's a part of your background. Can you give us a wider range of your background now for anybody that doesn't know who you are?
Sure. Yeah. Like you said, my name's Harry Muir. I'm from London, Ontario, Canada. Born and raised here, living here now. Left for a little while because of baseball, but London's home and always will be, I think. Started out locally playing baseball. I think I was 6 years old. Played all my way through right to junior. I had the opportunity to try out for the Ontario team, made the Ontario team back in 1990. I competed in the national championship, won that with Team Ontario, and then I was selected to try out for the junior Canadian team in 1990 as well, the same summer. Super fortunate to make that team as well. 1990 was a busy summer for me, and then we went to Cuba for the World Junior Championships that same summer, where I was fortunate enough to face France in the first round, and I threw a no-hitter against them. And then that allowed me to get the opportunity to face the powerhouse United States team in the the medal rounds. Didn't get to beat them. We came close, but it was exciting to face guys like Sean Green, back in the day. And I can proud to say that Sean Green did not get a hit off me that day. So that was exciting. And then after that, my world turned upside down. I had scholarship offers, professional team signing offers. So I finally decided to sign with the Blue Jays in March of 1991. I was one of the last Canadians to sign as a free agent. Canada joined the draft March 5th, so there was a big signing across the country to sign a bunch of Canadians before that, and I signed, I think, March 3rd of that year. Traveled to Florida my first year, and then I spent the next 4 years kind of clawing my way up through the ranks in the Blue Jays organization. Unfortunately, they won back-to-back World Series while I was there, so it wasn't much movement in the system back then. So I was released in 1994, and then I spent a year in France, which is not known for its baseball, but more like the beaches, and I enjoyed my time there. It was kind of just a fun experience for me. I wasn't really looking for competitive baseball, but I just wanted to travel a little bit, have some more fun. I lost kind of the dream, I guess you could say, playing for the Jays. And so my friend Greg Hamilton was the coach. He invited me over there. We won another national championship over there. So I had the unique opportunity to win two national champions for two different countries. So that was cool. And Greg, now, if you know Greg Hamilton, he's the director of baseball for Baseball Canada. So he's involved with the World Baseball Classic right now. So he was kind of my mentor, I guess you could say, as to like when I really got into coaching, or the thought that, I want to be a coach down the road. Up until that, I hadn't really much forethought into coaching, but he was just so good. Just the way he talked to players, talked to us, treated us was real. Like in professional baseball, you don't get a lot of coaching. It's kind of do it or don't do it. And so after I left that, I really thought of my future is in coaching. And, eventually I got involved with the Inter-County Baseball League here in London with the London Majors, and I started coaching and playing there. And then I had kids, and I took a little hiatus as the kids were young. And then my son, I think, was 6 years old when he started playing. So then I got into local ball coaching, and I spent 12 years with the London Tecumsehs, which is now the Talons. And then we launched the Purpose of Sport initiative, and now I'm the new GM of the Chatham, Kent, no names yet, IBL team here, an expansion team in 2024. So that's my newest position in baseball. So I'm super excited for that. Super excited for all the opportunities I've had in baseball.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to ask you a really tough question that you got to be careful with your answer here. What was cooler in life, having kids or throwing a no-hitter?
Oh, the kids.
Right answer. Right
Kids
answer.
no
The
hitter.
kid.
It was
The
pretty
kids.
cool, like it was my second no hitter. I threw one when I was 13, I think. But yeah, being on that world stage like that, not that France was a powerhouse, but it was my first foray in that kind of talent pool. And I had a great day. And obviously, when you throw a no hitter, it's not all pitching, right? There's some defense that always, and there were 3 plays that guys made that could have even easily been 3 hits. So
Yeah,
it's always a team effort. But I was more proud of my American start, to be honest, because it was a much higher caliber. I gave up no earned runs against them as well. So after 2 games in the World Championships, I had 15 innings and no runs. So that was
wow.
a big point. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. And that's probably the right answer about the kids, because you don't want your kids getting upset with you. But speaking of youth, because youth sport's been big for you since you retired from professional baseball, and obviously coaching with the Tecumsehs and now the Talons, as you mentioned, and in other areas, you're now with the IBL and the new Chatham team. When you look at youth sport, and not just baseball, but all youth sport, and you think about what you're seeing in coaching, what you're seeing from player behavior, what you're seeing from parent behavior, what are you seeing right now, and does any of it concern you?
Yeah, I think it's obvious to anybody. You pull up any social media platform and you'll see in these videos of coaches yelling at coaches and players yelling at coach. Like it's gone crazy. And I know platform like the social media obviously gives it more audience than we would have seen maybe 30 years ago. But and not to say it didn't happen 30 years ago, but I think it's getting way worse, and it is concerning. I think it's concerning for anybody who's a parent, anybody who has kids in athletics. I think it's the fact or the lack of respect for others, I think, is a real downturn. And I think we see it not just in sports, but I think it's all society. I think the respect for others is really coming. And even with the COVID thing, like there's such a divide between people. And it's evident in sports as well. And, youth sports itself, and I think has become a professional sport in its own right. Playing 10 to 12 months a year in one sport, I think is not good for anybody. The pressure put on kids to perform is gone through the roof. And I think money drives a lot of it. The cost of sports, putting your kids in sport is not a cheap thing anymore. Like I think when I played, it was $80. I probably had, I don't remember ever having a new glove when I grew up. Now I see kids come into the field with, 3, 4, 5 gloves, 3 bats. It's thousands of dollars to play. It's an expensive thing. It's a huge commitment for a family. I know a lot of people give up their summers to do it. I did for years. No summer vacations in the summer. The pressure of money. I think a lot of people put pressure on themselves to get their kids in these great programs, and even money aside, that we'll find the money. So there's money pressures on parents. So the whole decline is I think it's just putting pressure on people, and it's showing in the field, and and our kids are reacting, and they're mimicking what they see, right? So if they see parents and coaches yelling, well, that's what they learn from. That's how they learn, right? They learn from examples, and we're not giving them a good example right now. So I think that concerns me.
Yeah. Do you think some of that comes from, you mentioned social media in your answer there. Do you think some of that comes from that we can, kids are, Snapchatting each other, even teammates kind of chirping at each other on Snapchat or WhatsApp or whatever post game, you made a terrible play or what? Do you think that kind of has led to some of that extra competition that wasn't there before?
Absolutely. And personally, my nephew had an experience with that. He was a golfer at a super golfer at a young age. I think he was ranked in the top 25 in North America at age 14. And he was getting bullied by other 17, 18-year-olds because he was beating them.
Yeah.
So on social media, he was getting beat up, and he quit golf when he was 17 years old because of it. So yeah, I think it's social media. Both the good, you've seen the videos of the guys of the bat flips now, right? Like it tries, these kids, it's like, how high can you throw the bat, right? And coming up with these great dances and stuff, and it's disrespectful, I think, to the other team. And then you get the social media part of it, so the bullying on the other side of it, like these kids kids today it's relentless. There's no break for them.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I think, you look at for coaches in particular and try to handle this kind of environment. I mean, you're almost handling it now off the field as much as you're handling it on the field, especially as you get to the older ages that are using social media. And I think Baseball Canada and the Coaching Association of Canada does a pretty good job of teaching coaches how to manage these types of situations with some of their courses. But we know there's a lot more that can be done. And you co-founded the Purpose of Sport initiative, which you dubbed POSI. And first of all, maybe tell us what that is and why you chose to bring it to youth sports now.
Sure, I'll start with how it was kind of a conversation that started between myself and two others. We're down to two of us now, but it was just like a concern that we had. We met through our wives. And we would just like we're talking right now. We were just talking about sports, and one's in hockey, one is a conflict resolution expert, and there was myself, and we were just talking about what's happening in youth sport and what we see happening. And this conversation every time we met, we kept going over these concerns, and we ended up starting Purpose of Sport initiative, trying to get back to the grassroots of what sport should be, what sport was when it all kind of came about. And it's just a place where we feel coaches and athletes and parents can share ideas, share best practices, and support the character growth for our young athletes. I think that's what's missing now is we're so focused on, getting the scholarship and getting the money that we're forgetting that sport is there to build character. And that's what we're focusing on. It seems like everybody's focusing on that 1%. That may make it. I was part of that 1%, but in reality, the 99% aren't going to make it. And what happens to that 99%? So we're focusing on that 99%, trying to build their confidence, build their character, so that when they go out to life and they're not playing sports, they have a good, solid foundation. We chose to bring it to the youth side first, because you always see everything kind of trickling down from the top. And you've seen it now, like Safe Sport. I don't know if you're familiar with Safe Sport, but Baseball Canada has, because of what's happening in, like Hockey Canada, Gymnastics Canada, we won't get into all that stuff, but, Safe Sport has been created, and it's an initiative, but it's starting at the top, right? And it takes years and years for that to trickle down, if it ever gets to the bottom, because they have all the money. So they can hire a company for $150,000 and bring in all these doctors and experts and stuff. And the average organization can't do that. So we wanted to start at the bottom, and we're hoping that when we start at the bottom, we'll build these athletes, build these coaches up, so that when they do get to the top, and then maybe they get that 1% gets to there, they can make those changes because they've already learned it. So we're trying to start from the grassroots and to get the conversation going from the bottom, because this is where all the parents are, right? This is where it's where all it starts. And we think that it should start from the bottom and grow itself. And then when they get to the top, there's no concern at the top anymore. So that's kind of why we started with
yeah, and if you think about it, you're seeing that in Major League Baseball right now. They didn't start with the pitch clock that they're doing right now in the major leagues. They started from the bottom, let everybody work through it. They work through all the issues and things like that. And now, after seeing success with it in the minor leagues, it's pretty successful so far in spring training. A lot of getting used to it, but it's pretty successful, right? It's kind of interesting when you think about how the different pieces work in POSI, because and I know from having gone through some of the sessions with you what it all means, but what does it mean what are the parts of it for coaches, for play? Is it just for coaches? Is it just for players? Is it for the whole organization? Like, could even at a board level they get involved? What can organizations expect?
Yeah, we're all about communication, really, like from all levels, right? It's when we work with the talents or companies at a time, for instance, like the organization from the top was involved, right? We can't get involved with an organization unless we have buy-in with the board, right? Because it's a hard sell for some people, right? There's a lot of old school attitudes out there, and this isn't really new thinking, but it is new thinking, right? And so it's a hard sell for that. So if we don't, yeah, we have to have the board involved, the executives of any organization. We want the coaches involved, the players, and the parents, because everything works together in one of those organizations. There are no separate entities involved in any of that. So we, like our three major points of POSI are why we play, beyond the skills, and return on investment. Why we play is, like, sport was, like I said earlier, sport was designed to have fun, to give kids activities, to teach them an active lifestyle at a young age, will hopefully transfer into active lifestyles as older parents or older kids, right? So, and then beyond the drills, it's kind of where we talk about, technical skills and strategy planning is super important for any team, and it's super great skills. You have to have them as a coach as well. And Baseball Canada and Hockey Canada do a great job at teaching those solid skills, like how do you take a slap shot, how do you feel the ball, right? Like, we have all those courses we have to take as coaches year after year so that we can progress as coaches. But we found that there was this gap on the other side of the fence, that nobody's teaching the soft skills, right? Like, how do you communicate with these kids? How do you show them how to be a good athlete, or like a good teammate, or a good be supportive, be confident, right? So that's kind of our point where we talk about beyond the drills. And then the return on investment is, because it's become such a money game, we have to give something back to these kids, right? Like, we just can't take their money and then send them on their way. We have to, when these kids graduate through our, hopefully, a junior program, right? 12 years later at the 18-year level, I guess that's juvenile, whatever it is, right? So when they graduate from the program, you want them to be able to go into life and be functioning adults. And that's what we're focusing on, right? That's what the return on investment in sport should be. With spending $25,000 for your kid to play over 10 or 12 years, that's a huge commitment financially. And just to say that, well, you didn't get a scholarship and you didn't get a pro contract, so that's it, you're done. And if that's what you're expecting, then that's not the right thing. We got to give these kids more, and we got to give the parents more, right? And getting buy-in with the parents with our program, and buy-in from the coaches and the organization is super important. And it's actually been an easy sell for the people that are interested in it. I think it's becoming easier just because of what's happening in the press. It's a pandemic in its own, this lack of respect for each other, and we really push that with our program.
Yeah, and you would hope that, with there's so many programs out there, both in hockey and baseball, and probably in all the other sports too, that are elite, or they say they're elite programs, and they're really pushing the dream. You would hope that because of how expensive they are, they include something like POSI, so that they do get that development, so you get something out of that money. I mean, you see in those programs a lot of times that somebody sits and is benched for most of the season because they aren't as good as the other players, but they needed a full roster. And they're not getting a whole lot of value other than just watching baseball from the bench. Yeah. But if you can have something like POSI, if you can have something like this program going on throughout the season, and we'll get into the length of the program in a second, because that's another important point. I think that's huge for them. And I think these programs, not just like the Talents, which are smaller, AA organizations, single A organizations, but even AAA, even the elite programs need to involve their players in something like this for sure.
Absolutely. I think it's a good add-on, right? Like, they have physical training, or they have, a physical therapist, but yeah, they're not doing this either. And I guess it's an added on return on investment for their programs, because those programs are not cheap.
No,
$25,000 a year, and all you're getting is, and if you have this kid sitting on the bench, well, will you have them next year? But if you have this program, that kid will still have confidence in himself, and know that being part of the team is still important, right? Because everybody doesn't get to play, right?
Exactly.
That's the hard part. But
if they come out of that program and they're able to really succeed in life, maybe they become leaders in management and things like that, because they were leaders and cheering from the bench on the team because they knew the proper way to do it. Or, as you say, just working with other players and helping console them when they're down, and helping promote them even more when they're up. That, I think, is huge for life skills, and it makes those programs a little more worth it. But we've all been to conferences and sessions and coaching clinics and all of that stuff where we get a lot of stuff and then we leave and we don't use it. We think we're going to use it and then we don't use it. But POSI is a little different, isn't it? Because it isn't just a session with you guys and done. It's a process, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It's a year's commitment, right? Our program is basically 3 years. We start with the 13U or 14U coaches. We leave the younger guys alone because, it's kind of, they got to develop as coaches first. And then, so we work with first year coaches, we work with second year coaches and third year coaches. And as they go through our program, they'll graduate to the third year. And then we got new coaches coming in. So we start again with that first year program. And then, so eventually we're running like first year, second year, third year programs coherently, right? And eventually what we want is that with buy-in from all these coaches and the organization, they take over. Like we don't want to be doing this with an organization for much more than 3 years. We want to develop, here's the program, and it's just repeat, right? Repeat, bring in the new coaches, teach them, and then eventually those coaches you would want to be teaching the new coaches, so that everybody gets trained, everybody knows what they're doing, everybody has buy-in. You got the parents buying in. If once the parents see that the older kids are doing this, then they look forward to doing this with their kids. Like we've had such great feedback from kids and parents about this. It's they're like, why haven't been doing this earlier? And like,
Exactly.
well,
It didn't exist. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now it does.
And, so it's very exciting, and especially the kids, because it's very, we get so busy today with these everything is so busy, right? Like I've split from my first wife, and there was a gap there where I was a single parent, and so having to take your kids to sports when it's all on you, and you have another, like I have 2 kids, come home, make dinner, get their homework done, rush them off to sports, get them back, get them into bed. Like everything is just rush. You don't have time to talk much anymore, and so when you get to practice, it's like, okay, we have an hour and a half. We got to get through all these skills in an hour and a half, and you just tell them what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And then, okay, go. We'll see you tomorrow. Right. And
yeah.
It's just rush. Like life is so rushing these days, that we don't talk to the kids very much. It's just go do this, and they do it, and they're great at doing it, but they don't really maybe know why, or they've only been shown one way when they could maybe, if they were allowed to do it on their own, and you gave them a little more time to learn, these kids would be a little more creative and do the same, but different, right? Like everybody can be creative and not field the ball the same way, but as long as you're getting to that same position, that's all that matters. But if we're all so technically sound, like this foot here, this hand here now, and it's do this, right? And we're recreating these robots that they're all great ball players, but they're not creative ball players. They're not creative athletes anymore. We've created hockey players, we've created baseball players, but we haven't created athletes.
Yeah.
And I think that's lost. And it's lost because it's 10 to 12 months of the same sport. I grew up, I played 4 sports. I was a 4-sport athlete. I played volleyball in this fall, basketball, and then track and field, and then baseball. And it was like the perfect training ground for me as an athlete, because by the time I got around to baseball, I was in the best shape of my life. And then I played baseball, and then when I got the volleyball, my arm was in great shape from baseball all summer. And then when I got the basketball, I was jumping the volleyball for 3 months. I was in great shape for basketball, and then basketball got me in shape for track and field, because basketball was running, got in shape for track and field. And then it was five years of high school doing that. It was a great training ground. I didn't need to play baseball for 10 months. And growing up in Canada, how many games did we get? Like 30?
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I pitched in 10, but I still played pro ball because I was an athlete. Like they produced an athlete out of me because I was a 4-sport athlete.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge point you make there. And just to veer off a little bit, I'm doing a health journey now where I'm doing the iFit program on one of those treadmills with the screen on it. And one of the videos has what I think most people would consider one of the best athletes in the world, Michael Phelps, who obviously won all those swimming competitions and gold medals. But in his videos, he talks about exactly what you're kind of referring to now, which is so many athletes and everybody knows his stories of swimming 10 hours a day and then just eating for the other 2 hours or sleeping or whatever. And, it was always these skill sets that he was putting into play, but nobody talked about all the mental work he did behind the scenes. Right. Yeah. And that is what he talks about this as that is what truly made me an athlete, was the work I did mentally preparing for these competitions, as much as it was trying to learn the, as you say, put your hand here, put the glove here, that
Yeah.
type of thing. And right now it seems like we're just saying, do this because that'll help you catch a ball. And then the rest is up to you to figure out, to our kids today, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, it started back, like we were when I was with the Blue Jays, we were one of the first organizations to hire a full-time sports psychologist, and that was Sam McDowell. If you know Cheers, if you ever seen a Cheers episode, Sam from that movie or from that TV show was based on Sam McDowell. Sudden Sam
Oh,
is
wow.
what his real, yeah, and we were the first to have him, but we didn't know what to do with him. Like, here you have access to a sports psychologist, but I'm like, okay. Great. What do I do with them? Right. Oh, well, give them a call. I'm like, okay, about what? Like, so you don't really know how to use them, right? But they had access to it. So if, it's great to have the outlets, but if you're not taught as an athlete how to communicate with them and how to use it, it's a waste.
Yeah, absolutely. So thinking about the fact that the program is about 3 years in length, and you guys do move on eventually, what are the responsibilities, or what should an organization think about doing to make sure they continue to implement POSI well beyond you guys moving on to other organizations?
I think it's building the culture. I think that's the big part, is that, having, everybody's a volunteer, right? And from being involved that, finding the coaches, finding the board members, it's tough. But being willing to stick to your guns and say, you know what? Yes. Like, would you rather have a team with a bad coach or have no team? Like being able to say, you know what, these are our standards. This is our culture. If we don't find the right fit, we're not going to just sacrifice our kids' future to put a 12U team together. I think that's important. Just going forward and saying, this is our culture, this is where we want to be, and we're not going to settle for down here. We're staying up here. And if we can't find this, then we're not going to go here. And hopefully from our program, that's just a natural progression that, yeah, we're not going to settle. We're always going to be involved with the organization, as far as, we're not going to say, okay, 3 years and see you later, don't ever call us again. We do have offers that, like we can help with conflict resolution, and we want them to be successful, right? We don't want them to say, here, thanks for your money, we'll see you later, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
We're always available, but I mean, if they need more years, they need more years, and stuff like that. But ultimately, we want them to take over and say, yes, we're now happy with the culture. We're going to stick with this culture. But building the culture, and it's just like we're building this new team in Chatham, and we want to build a winning. I know at our age, we're looking at winning, right? We're a for-profit team, so we need to win, to put seats and butts into seats and stuff. And I saw Rob Thompson talk up in Stratford this winter, and he mentioned how important winning cultures are in pro ball, right? Coming from the Yankees, that's all they have. That's all they've known. So he's trying to take that same culture to the Phillies, and the Phillies haven't been known for winning in the last, little while, right? So he's like retraining everybody there on how the Yankees do things, and his ownership and the board are all on board. So they're willing to make the changes, to bring in the staff that are willing to stick to that culture. And it's no different from these organizations. Maybe the Yankees, they're focused on winning culture, but we're focused on, kids culture, right? Kids first, fun first, development, both mentally and physically. And, so it's a culture that you need to build, and you need to be willing to stick to that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that can apply to all levels too. I'm sure there's house league coaches watching us right now that are saying, oh, here we go. They're talking about is rep. All they're talking about is, the elite programs. This is for everyone though, isn't it? Like, house league organizations shouldn't sit back and go, well, that's for competitive players. But do you notice when you do this with house league organizations versus rep that there's more buy-in, less buy-in? Is there a big difference between the two?
To be honest, we haven't done house league, and I don't know, house league is different in its own right, because I think, their culture is more like they're still focused on fun. A lot of the cases, and a lot of the cases, they have a competitive side. The parents are, I think it's a lot with expectations, right? Your expectations are much lower. So I think there's still, to say there's no issues in house league would be stupid. but I think there's a lot less issues with the fact that the expectations are lower. Therefore, they don't have the problems maybe associated with the competitive or travel ball problems. But I absolutely that there's always work to do. And maybe with a house league organization, it's not a 3-year program. Maybe it's just a 1-year or 2-year thing where we can, if they're having issues, right? Like, people don't really come to you unless they have issues typically.
Yeah.
And so I think if it's an issue thing, absolutely, we would love to work with any level of organization. And I think just it seems to be proportional, with more money spent, more problems,
Yeah,
the more the registration fees are, the higher the problems, and
the higher the problems are. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we get to the last question here, I just want to ask one more about your vision for this, and get into, if you had your way 5 to 10 years from now, and let's say POSI is well adopted across sport, what would youth sports look like?
It would look like fun, really. It would look like both sides. At the end of the day, you would see both teams leave, and it would be hard to tell which team won and which team lost. Both sides of parents would be happy. The refs would be happy leaving. The players would be happy leaving. I think the saddest thing I ever hear about is, kids dreading that car ride home, being trapped in a steel ball with a parent that may be a little overbearing and telling you what you did wrong, this and this was wrong and this was wrong, or saying, oh, that kid that played ahead of you shouldn't be playing because of this. And really, we should all just go out for ice cream and have a great time. I would love to see, in 5 to 10 years from now, like when I drive by a ballpark, in the summer, that kids are just playing, that they're not, it's a kid with a bat playing some 500. I think if I asked any kid today what 500 was, I don't know if anybody would be able to tell me or how to play it, and we used to do that all the time, right? Pick up a ball, a bat. You didn't even need gloves. You just needed a bat, right? A bat and a ball. I don't see as much street hockey anymore. So we don't let our kids play as much. It's always because, like I said, there's always so much time, like everything is scheduled in their lives these days, that it's from hockey to baseball, they're playing basketball, plus they're playing hockey, travel ball in the winter or something. So it's just go from one thing to the next. And they never have that opportunity to go out and play. And I think play is where they learn, where they're creative and they have fun. If we were able to kind of get away, like I would love to see no parents at practice either. And to be honest, I think, we drive our kids to practice and we sit there and watch practice, and then we go to their games and watch practice or watch the games. The kids never have any opportunity to do anything wrong, I guess, because their parents are always watching. So they're afraid to make a mistake, or afraid that they're going to get in trouble because they goofed around their practice or something. And, I would like to see just more play being allowed, less supervision, and just, pick up like car,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I hardly ever see that in the neighborhoods anymore, and it's disappointing because that was so much fun growing up.
With the EV cars, you can't even hear them coming now. But
yeah. I gotta pay more attention.
Be a little different, but I love that because and what a way to kind of cap this off, to say the word fun, because you can be competitive and have fun at the same time. Yeah. And I always say this, I'm an 11U coach, as you know, with the Talons, and every parent meeting at the beginning of the season, I say the biggest reward for me as a coach is not if we win the OBAs at the end of the year. The biggest reward for me is if I'm at 12U tryouts next year and you all are trying out, because that means you enjoyed the year, you had fun, you played hard, and you're back and you want to be back. Right. And I think that's huge. I mean, that doesn't mean we're not competitive. That doesn't mean we don't try to win ball games or even win those OBAs, but we want to make sure that the experience has them coming back every time, because there's so much importance in youth sport. I'm a firm believer it develops kids in their lives. And if you have something like POSI on top of that, I mean, it's an amazing difference it can make, for sure.
Absolutely. Like, it's these kids are, there's so much pressure on these kids. We just got to let them play again and have fun. And and like I said, winning is important. Like, kids life is a competition, right?
Yeah.
And these, it's not about not winning. It's not about, winning is not important. Hell, winning is super important. Because they need to focus on a task, right? They need to put dreams out there, like this is what we want to do, and they need to know, like, work hard, get to that. And but you may not win. Right?
Yeah.
Even after all that hard work, you may not win, but you're going to be awesome anyways. Right?
Yeah.
Like you focus on this, you're going to get to here. And if your goal's here, you're probably going to end up here. And whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter. Like it does matter, but at the end of the day, to us, it doesn't matter. As parents, it shouldn't matter. We should let the kids be upset. Like if they'd lose, they should be upset, right? Because they tried hard. They went out there, and in their minds, they might have failed. But after an hour or 2 hours, it should be forgotten, and it shouldn't be drilled in. Like, got to do better. You got to do this. Let's get out to the backyard and work on this because you missed 3 swings, and it's like, especially with baseball. Like baseball's hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
baseball's hard.
You fail more than you succeed in baseball, and
it's so cliche. Like baseball's hard and you fail, but it's true. Like it's if you can succeed in baseball, and you can succeed in life, right? If you can fail 7 out of 10 times and be happy with it, like be content with it, right? And know that I'm still doing that 30% of the time. I'm still rocking it. You're gonna go a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say that to the kids: we either win or learn. We don't really lose, right? We're learning what we can do next time to try and get that win, but we're still striving for the win, right? And that's life. I mean, there's no participation medals for life, and not everybody gets a medal or a trophy. So you got to go and you got to work hard for that. But at the same time, you got to have fun and you got to learn, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Harry,
it's the journey, right? It's a journey.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so awesome. I know you're a busy man and you're doing this POSI thing and you're trying to get a team built in the IBL and everything. So I appreciate the time you took to do this. Are there any other final thoughts you want to give coaches, players, parents before we go here?
Yeah, sure. I just want to we don't have all the answers, right? Like I said, and from my speaking with you guys, I failed miserably to start as a coach. I thought I had all the answers. And I realized I didn't. And it's just about learning, right? It's just we're not going to start out being great coaches, or very few of us are. And POSI has not only helped me be a better coach because I learned along the way with these other 2 guys. It made me a better parent. I'm a better parent now than I've ever been because of the skills I've learned through baseball. And as a coach, learning how to coach properly is basically parenting. Like you've got 25 kids, you're a babysitter for 2 hours a few times a week, right? So yeah, it's I don't have all the answers. All we're doing is we're trying to start a conversation and taking coaches like yourself and 15 other coaches with your same experience. All of a sudden we have 150 years of coaching experience in a room. And we're trying to get that conversation started because how often does the 12U coach talk to the 18U coach, right? Not very often in the season. Well, we're trying to bring everybody together and talk and say, hey, this works for me. Oh, this worked for me. And use that experience. And that's how I think how POSI continues without us, is just by teaching people to communicate throughout their organization and learn from each other.
I love that. So if an organization's watching this, they've gotten all the way through and they're saying, we got to do this, how do they get in touch with you guys?
We have a website up, www.purposeofsport.com. You can find us on the web.
Perfect. That's awesome. And they can connect with you on some social media too, I assume, or are you on social media?
We're not super active there yet. We haven't, neither one of us are
social experts.
Yes, right now it's just kind of, and you can get the contact information there for both of us on the website. So
perfect. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. We'll make sure that the website's up on the screen as well for anybody watching. Harry, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. For Harry Muir, I'm Chris Baker. Make sure you get your kids into youth sport, but make sure it's all POSI all the time. And contact the POSI guys. They'd be happy to come out to your organization and start the program with you. Thank you again, Harry. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.